What happens when you stop chasing external validation and start living in alignment with your own values? In this episode, I sit down with award-winning columnist and storyteller Bonnie Jean Feldkamp to explore what it means to hold space for good in our communities and within ourselves. From leaving a prestigious editorial role to reclaiming her health and voice, Bonnie shares the bold steps she took to live her truth. This conversation is a strong and needed reminder that our worth is not defined by metrics, but by our courage to be who we truly are. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. I'm Dan Peters, psychologist and leadership coach. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to become better versions of ourselves and make a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today's show is completely aligned. Today's show is Holding Space for Good with Bonnie Jean Feldkamp. Bonnie is an award-winning syndicated columnist published in newspapers across the U.S. via Creator Syndicate. She's been writing, publishing, and mentoring writers for more than 20 years. Bonnie is the former community engagement and opinion editor for the Louisville Courier-Journal, as well as former media director for the National Society of Newspaper Columnists. Her TED Talk, Contempt versus Connection in Online Communication, aims to encourage productive discourse and foster commentary with compassion. Bonnie, welcome back to the show.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here.
We did this in 2021, had our first formal conversation, and then I had the wonderful privilege of you asking me a bunch of questions a few months ago.
Yes.
And we learned that we're on aligned synergetic paths here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So when I was looking back at all the stuff that you've put out over the years, the TED Talk. So it's interesting. The TED Talk is 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you at that time were talking about contempt versus compassion because of your experience as an editor and what you have seen in the business over the years. And then about 4 months ago, I would say, October, you pushed out a column basically making a decision.
Yes.
So I'm curious to what that process was like for you.
Yeah, I've always wanted to lift community voices, hear from different perspectives with the objective of productive discourse, but also my dogma is kind of you tie personal experience to current events to help the reader empathize, relate, and care. And that I thought, throughout my time at with the National Society of Newspaper Columnists, the NSNC, then I mentored columnists, and as a writer, I tried to do that in my own work. And then when the opportunity came up for me to be an editor of a newspaper for the opinion section, I thought, what a better way to implement that purpose than to be actually in the newsroom and the deciding person and to do that. The problem with that wonderful dream was that my purpose didn't necessarily align with corporate journalism's objectives for the bottom line. The people who work there are amazing, and I'm not disparaging journalists at all. They do amazing work, but the corporations that own journalism kind of steer things in a different direction. So it became more about clicks and metrics than it did about the purpose of the opinion section as I saw it. And so after 3 years of that, I came to the realization that my purpose and my work is better served on the other side of the desk, where I can write the columns and where I can lift the community of voices by writing about the people doing good work while also presenting at conferences. I present at universities a lot on how to write effective op-eds and continue to mentor writers from the other side.
Mm.
And so that is how that all transpired. So in October, I left the Courier Journal to really double down on that objective to really shine lights on the people doing the good work through sharing their perspective and their personal stories. So that's the shorthand of it.
Was it scary?
Oh, it's terrifying. It is very scary. And it was, and actually I have to say it was equally scary taking the editor position because I really wanted to have a go at it, and I really wanted to. I'd never worked in journalism formally at a newspaper before, so it was a big leap. And yes, the editors took a chance on me, and I did well. And I do feel that if you ask anyone, that I did well at that job. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. It was that, as my therapist always told me, identify your values. And when you feel yourself out of sorts, it's because you're acting outside of those values.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to therapy in those times as the editor of the newspaper. And that's what we kept coming back to, is that the job constraints were forcing me to live outside of those values. And that is what was causing the huge amount of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it was like to the point. I don't know if your audience is middle-aged women or not, but like I had skipped 2 periods in a year, and I thought, oh, this is menopause, and it wasn't. It was stress.
Stress, yeah.
And then when I gained 30 pounds, my blood pressure went up, all of those things, and it was all because I was not aligned in my actions on a daily basis in a way that was meaningful. And that is something that has always been very important to me. So when I left,
Mm-hmm.
I'm down 20 pounds and my blood pressure is down again. I'm back to being regular monthly. So it's like
Yeah.
it's amazing how much your body does really keep the score when you're in the thick of all of those things.
It does. And you're making such an important point for us to listen to our bodies, because our bodies literally shut down, from frozen shoulder. I know of a situation recently where someone literally went into paralysis because of the stress and
Wow.
had to be, you know, removed from the situation. And the toxic situation,
Mhm.
right? So I think what many of us do is we just buckle down and we dig in and we just keep going and going because we think we're supposed to, or we don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
And our body is telling us. Our body is telling us.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate what your therapist told you and what you've acted out, which is living in alignment with your values.
Mhm.
There's nothing there's almost nothing greater than that. And I think of Martha Beck's work on living in integrity, similar,
Mhm.
similar, and how we know at some point when we're in a situation where we are being forced or pushed into or influenced
Mhm.
to step around those values. And often it's this really subtle, insidious process, right? Until we finally realize, whoa, wait,
Yeah.
how did I get here? And
Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah. Absolutely. I would agree. And I do have to recognize that I understand what a huge privilege it is to walk away from a steady full-time job and to
Yes.
have a supportive husband that says, "Do it. I got you, and we'll
Right.
figure it out and we'll adjust." And that's not support that everybody has, and sometimes we have to do what we have to do to feed ourselves while we work on
Yes.
our values and living those out. So I'm not blind to that opportunity was absolutely a privilege that
Yes.
I'm grateful for. So, yeah.
Completely. And it's just as important for people who are in situations that they can't leave to
Mhm.
still be aware of the physical stress and manifestations, and anywhere they might be able to have a conversation to try to make some change, just not to be blindsided. Because
Right.
again, a lot of times we do mental jumping jacks and we just persevere. And everyone has their own trauma history, which
Mhm.
also informs how we go about doing things. It's that body that does not lie.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I hear you.
Yep. Absolutely. And I have to say that it was a huge journey for me as the it's funny when I got my syndicated column actually in April of 2021, and then I was hired at the Courier Journal in September of 2021. So it was all like boom, boom, it happened. And when my syndicated column contract happened, that was my dream, was to be a syndicated columnist. Absolutely my dream. And then when I became an opinion editor, I was like, oh my goodness, it was like a dream that I didn't realize that it was a new thing. But I had to take in the fact that that was it was almost like an internship in the industry. Like I got a really inside look of how things operate. But
Mm-hmm.
when I stepped back, I had to remind myself that a syndicated column is enough. It's enough. You don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
both, because I was not doing that well when I was trying to hold a full-time job. And the inside work I'm doing a lot of lately is worthiness, and that comes from a lifetime of trauma and other things that you would think as almost 50 years old that I would be through by now. But that's constant need to prove yourself in order to be
Yes.
worthy
Yes.
of X, Y,
Yes.
and Z, whether that's love, whether that's an income, whether that's what have you. And so that, like, my meditations are centered around that a lot lately, is that this is you are enough right
Yes.
here, and
Yeah.
you are worthy of all of these things outside of, you know, a corporate validating job.
Mm-hmm. This issue actually comes up a lot. And so for you to say at 50, you would think, trauma doesn't work that way.
No.
It, as you said, the body keeps a score.
That's
It
right.
stays with us, and even working on it, it is a process.
Mhm.
And but the topic of being enough is we can't talk about it enough because we have a whole my feeling we have a whole world of or society of people who are doing and often getting less and less and less connected to who they are.
Yeah.
And again, many of us are trained, society,
Mhm.
family, school, that
Yeah.
we are worth what we produce. And
Yes.
not only we are what we produce, but how good it is and what the grade is and all of the trophies and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you start to unwind that? Like, was there a pivotal moment, or was it an accumulation of moments and
Oh.
good therapy to help you
A
with this?
lifetime of good therapy, and
Yeah.
it's so funny because, I mean, it goes back to my mother died in a car accident when I was 7,
Hmm.
and she was the quintessential matriarch. She had biological children and foster children, and she cared for all of us, and I was the baby of the family, and there were just that it's like you have that one day and then that just is gone. And then I have a grieving, emotionally unavailable father who did the very best he could. And then I have a stepmother whom I love very much, but it took a long time. That's a relationship that's starting from ground one, that doesn't come in day one. So it even comes down to even that being worthy of love, and then going through, gosh, another trauma when, like, my dad threw me out when I was 18, so I was homeless for 2 years. And again, he's good. He's a wonderful man with his own baggage. We all do.
Hmm.
So all of that culminated into, and then I got married, had a baby, had a divorce. And so it was when I turned 32, which is the age my mother was when she died in the car accident. And
Mm.
it was I'm named after my mom. I'm a junior.
And
I
you
felt
look
like,
like her. The pictures.
oh, I should show you a
Oh,
picture of my dad too, because my dad look a lot like my dad. I'm a
wow.
very good blend, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, so she is. so all of that, and for those who have lost parents, hitting that milestone of the same age they were when they die is a huge thing. And I met my husband, my now husband, when I was 31, and the whole story of us, he was in town for a 2-year work assignment, and I met him 1 year into that, and it was like, here's the love of my life. I feel like I'm getting ready to die, and nothing makes you dive into and give zero fucks about whether or not it's going to work out, like you thinking you're going to die in a year. So like something about that incredible meeting made everything fall away and go for it in a way that I had never done before. And in that process, and in that whole thing of learning and learning to accept love and feeling that I was worthy of it, really that's where my journey of self-worth started, was because nothing will show you your demons like a marriage and help you work through that like a marriage, especially a strong one where you can call each other's bullshit out and we can deal with each other's trauma and say, no, 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 I never said that. That's your dad talking, not me, and you can have those kinds of conversations with a true partner who is willing to do the inside work to grow alongside you is it's got to be the greatest gift of my life.
It's a gift. Yeah. What a gift.
Yeah.
So you were at the same time, so you were following in love and preparing to die, right?
Yeah.
Like, like this psychic or real death.
Yes.
And then with incredible motivation for both of those reasons to be like, I got to deal with my shit. I got to heal. I got to grow. I got to figure this stuff out.
Right. Right. Because I hadn't I liked who I was at my core, but one, I wasn't afraid to be that I wasn't confident to be that person. And two, I didn't like who I was masking to be on top of that. And so I had a divorce, and from a marriage that absolutely showed me a lot of things that I didn't want to be. And so it was that whole time of just saying, okay, who are you going to be for this world for the rest of your life? And how are you going to, you're not dying. I survived. I had a big old party the year I turned 32. Um, and I toasted it with my dad at a bar with my now husband. We all just got together and toasted the ending of an era. And I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, it's time to get to work to figure out who Bonnie is without all these benchmarks, because I needed to get married like my mom did. I needed to have babies like my mom did. I had I was named after her. I felt like I had to hold on to her and honor her. But then after surpassing that age, I had no more benchmarks left. So I had to figure out who the hell I was going to be.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really weird thing. And I don't know if that's common with people who lose their parents or juniors, but I really did track my life based on who she was and who I thought I was supposed to be because of that.
I think my experiences absolutely happens with both juniors and losing a parent. This unwritten pressure about emulation and living up to and shadow.
Yeah.
So absolutely. It just occurred to me, your column, Holding Space for Good. This was the beginning of you holding space for good within yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'll take that. I think so. Yeah, I think so, because I think I've been very protective of that ever since, especially with my family and what I want for my family and for my relationship with my husband. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you are multifaceted. You are multifaceted. You are in the band, in the high school band, and you musician, songwriter, played in Bluebird at the Bluebird
I
Cafe
did.
in
I
Nashville.
did.
You literally played at the Bluebird Cafe. I watched
I
that
did. Yeah,
performance, and I mean that's iconic, right?
it
I mean, like
is.
that is, and the
It is.
perseverance. So I mean, there's this part of you that just does not stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, we're here one day, right? One world, one life. Like you said, you got to make it a great one. And I'm like, man, I want to get to the end of it. Irma Bombeck has a quote, something like that. She wants to use everything in her, and she speaks in terms of spirituality and God, where she stands before God, and she's used everything that He's given her. And I just like to think of it. I was like, man, the last thing I want to do is get to the end of it and have like what ifs about me.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I tell my kids all the time is like, the world will tell you no. Don't do it for them by not ever trying.
Yeah.
And that's it. And even when I took that job at the Courier Journal, I had no idea if I was going to be able to do it. If it weren't for the pandemic, I would have never applied for it because I have autoimmune disease. So I have psoriatic arthritis, and I went through, talk about for better or worse. I moved to Michigan with my husband when at the end of his 2-year job stint, and promptly was diagnosed and bedridden for 6 months. So I was like, oh my word. And then that just threw me for a whole other loop. I
Mm-hmm.
quit my job. I was the executive director of a community center and also moonlighting as a freelance writer. And that I was reduced to being bedridden as I jumped through all the hurdles that the insurance companies make me jump through to find the medications that you have to try the ones they want you to try before you can try the ones your doctor actually wants you to take. And that just really, really crushed me for a while. I couldn't walk without a cane. It was just really hard. So I went to full-time freelance writing because I could manage that and I could rest when I needed to rest and I could do those things. So it was when I applied for this job that now no longer I was not just working for myself or someone else, and I could work from home thanks to the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
I could work remotely. And even when it opened up, I was only required to be in the office once or twice a week. So uh, it was it gave me an opportunity to try something for myself that
Mm-hmm.
I would never have gone after otherwise. And I did it.
You
I did
did
it.
it.
Wasn't for me, but I did it.
You did it.
So yeah.
Um, your idea about like life is short, and of course, you have very personal experience with that, and how to live and what to tell your kids. It made me think of this quote that someone that I had read about a year ago, which stopped me in my tracks, and it was the definition of hell, which
Hmm.
I don't like leading in like that, but that's what this was. And it was a definition of hell is when your last day on earth, your current self meets the person you could have become.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it tore through
Yeah.
me. Like it
Oh,
just
yeah.
all of a sudden I just was like in this vortex of whoa, like there's
Yeah.
so much the self-doubt,
Mhm.
the but what if, all of
Mhm.
the, the uncertainty, the worry, the fear, the
Yeah.
will this work? Will I fail? What will people think? It was just like all on the this shot out there for me to be
Yeah.
like, you gotta just blow through all that stuff because
It's hard.
I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I want to be the person that stretched it.
That's right. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. For me, especially, just I'm not a people pleaser, but I definitely have a hard time when I get hate mail from a column I've written and it's somebody that doesn't know me. That doesn't it kind of rolls off me now. But if it's somebody I think should know me or at least know my heart and they like have a hard time with something I've written, that's still I'm still working through that because I do care that people know that I am doing what I feel is best and genuine and that I don't have ill will. But You're not going to please everybody, and people will disagree with you. But I think that's
No.
why I champion productive discourse so much, is because we don't know how to have difficult conversations without contempt, because we lash out. And somewhere along the way, and we could blame social media, but it goes back beyond social media, is just that children or people are just not taught how to have hard conversations without blaming or without finger wagging, or they lead with hurt instead of leading with curiosity, or
Hmm.
leading with an open heart for conversation. That's the thing that's hard.
Hmm.
So, yeah. But I don't know how to fix that. I don't know, beyond just keep doing what I'm doing and talking to as many people as I can, that contempt isn't the way. That that's it.
No,
Yeah.
contempt is not the way. And connection is the way, right?
Yeah.
Connection, compassion,
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
communication. There's so many other. There's
Yeah.
so many others, and I know that I have really made a deliberate effort to lean in ways now that I think I was just kind of stepping on the sidelines more. I think
Mhm.
like we need to lead
Mhm.
by showing up, like having the courage to step into these tough things and
Mhm.
and model. And even if it's really hard, and even if we get some of that hate back, which I
Mhm.
think is inevitable,
Mhm.
it's so critical just to do it and to show, and just because I do think we can disarm people. There's obviously some people who are get stuck, and that's just where they're how they're going to be. But there are a lot of people that just don't know another way. They're afraid. They've got their own reasons for thinking and reacting. And
Mhm.
can we actually respect that long enough to see if we can open something up, open
Right.
some curiosity, as you say, or
Right.
create some connection?
Yeah. I have a hard time with, like, I'm wired for questions. I love to ask questions, and it's how I engage. If I feel like a person is actually in it to have a real conversation, I will ask questions. If you're in it just to berate and belittle me and just shut me down, then I won't engage. I'm not going to engage. But you will if you are open enough that you can take questions without feeling like they are accusations, then I think we can get somewhere. And I think that's something that people don't know how to do, is like, when people, not only do we need to be curious, but we need to be open to curiosity. Because if someone is truly wanting to meet you in the middle or find common ground, they are going to ask you questions about how your perspective came to be and what your thought process is. And I have found that too many times people will perceive questions as an accusation or an
Hmm.
attack, and
Hmm.
try to dismantle your theory, when we need to actually have questions that are rooted in honest curiosity.
Hmm.
But I
And
don't
I
know.
and I even well, my experience has been that a lot of times people don't intend to meet you in the middle.
Yeah.
They intend to make you wrong and make
Yep.
themselves right.
That's right. Yep.
And some of them can still be moved, right? Which
Mhm.
is like if you can hang in there and be curious, you're right. Be
Mhm.
curious about where their perspectives coming from,
Mhm.
what their experience has been, where are they getting their information.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm saying, like, if you can make a connection with someone,
Mhm.
I have found that that connection, it supersedes some of this other stuff. When someone's like, I kind of like this person. I don't know
Mhm.
what it is about them, but I kind of like them. And then you can kind of drop in the, can I offer you something just to get a sense of what you think about that? I like,
Right. Right.
and again, I know there's extreme
Yeah.
situations, but I think the
Oh, yeah.
hard part is hanging in with people who aren't that interested initially and don't
Mhm.
really want to meet you halfway.
Right. Yep. And I think the connection can be found in spaces where you show up. I think that it's a lot easier to form that connection if we meet outside of the debate. So if you show up in your community, if you're willing to work side by side with someone at a volunteer opportunity, if you're willing to go to that community forum and listen and communicate with respect, I think as people see you show up in different areas of your community, they begin to understand that you genuinely care about that community, and they're more, it's a big ask, they're more open to having conversations with you that are hard because they see you there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all been to those meetings where one person, the one person will start to speak, who always starts to speak, and we all roll our eyes.
Yep.
But you know what? We know that they're there because they care, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that makes it a
Yeah.
little easier. But that requires us all to step outside beyond our social media and our digital platforms and to connect in our community, which is another big ask.
Yep.
But the
Yes.
other thing is, if you step outside your community and the people see you, if you are of a population that is feared, if you are LGBTQ, if you are an immigrant, I think people start to see you represented and understand why you are there in your community. I say that as a
Mm-hmm.
person who is married to a first generation Mexican American. His mother is from Mexico. I say that as a person. I consider myself pansexual. I'm not. I don't consider myself a straight white woman. And I say that as a person who has family members who are LGBTQ. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that people need to not be afraid to interact with everyone, because you'll find out, guess what?
Right. Right.
There's differences around us everywhere.
There are, and people we can like people who are very different from us, and I
Mhm,
think that's what really changes when you the people who do keep showing up, the people who just start to say hello, show
mhm.
respect even for someone who is quote on the other side of the aisle.
Yep.
It Relationships form between people even when people disagree, and I
That's
feel
right.
like if that's the part, like showing up, hanging around long enough, um having the human decency, it can create a connection where someone's like, "Huh, I thought these people were like this, but this person isn't like that." Whatever
Right.
these is and that's are. So,
Right. Right.
we it is a big ask, and I think we have to ask it. Like I think we have to get beyond social media
Mhm,
and news feeds and be with real people and connect with real people. I find I do this thing when I run. What's kind of my mental health
mhm.
is I see people on the trail or I see people in the open space when it's not raining and going out there. And I do these kind of like, I wonder what they're all about. Like wonder what they're all about. There are
Yeah.
people from all different walks of life wearing hats that say lots of different things.
Mhm,
And when you say hello and you make eye contact and you connect with people,
mhm,
there's a true connection. And particularly the ones you see every Tuesday at this time, there's a connection,
mhm,
and they don't care and I don't care
mhm.
what they're about except in that moment.
That's right. Yep. Yep. And what, our kids all go to the same schools. We all visit the same post office. We all rely on the same streets to have potholes filled. There's a lot of common ground within a community, even though we have our
Mhm.
differences. And I don't run, but the thing that I do that's very similar that you made me think of is when I'm driving. Sometimes when I'm in my own head, I stop for a minute and I observe the crowded highway, and I'm like, every car has another person in it going to someplace completely different, having a completely different day, and we're all inside our own heads. So we are all we forget that each individual has their own story and has their own narrative, which is why
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a good narrative, is obviously
Mhm.
because that's why I do what I do, but right down to the music that I like. I'm like, if it's a song that tells me a story, I am all in.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, I think that we have to do a lot of that. We have to do a lot of that. And we have to have compassion for everybody's path. They
Right,
may
because
be
everyone has a story.
they do.
Every
Yeah.
person has
Yeah.
a story. And the something that I do bring up from time to time, you said the body keeps a score. So for everyone who's not completely familiar with the trauma literature, that is a Hallmark book on trauma.
Yeah.
And there was a more recent one that is what happened to you, Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce
Yes.
Perry, right? Where they've been collaborating for
Yeah.
2 to 3 decades. And it's a book of their conversation that talks about trauma. And the whole premise of the book is to ask the question, whether you are a medical provider, a mental health provider, a neighbor, first responder, whatever, is what happened to you, as opposed to us always judging people for their behavior as if nothing created what we are seeing, or that reaction, or something that doesn't make sense. And it is hard to do. It is very hard to do. It's like much easier for me to do that in my professional role than if I'm just being Dan out there and I'm like, whoa, what is that response all about?
Right.
But it's a reminder, like, everyone has their story, everyone has their narrative, and everyone's ideas came from very real places and experiences.
That's right. Yeah. It comes from someplace. It comes from someplace, absolutely. And we have to be more cognizant of that. Yeah, instead of what's wrong with you, what happened to you. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Or the one I steal from Brene Brown all the time is, what's the story you're telling yourself right now?
Yes.
What is the story you're telling yourself right now? My husband and I use that, and it's a great way to have a conversation and also disconnect that voice in your head that comes from nothing positive usually. So
Yeah, it's funny. Like, when you do, anyone try this out at home, and if you have enough courage to do this with a partner or a friend, and okay, the story I'm telling myself is that you are really frustrated with me for blah 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 blah. As you say it, sometimes it is the most ridiculous thing when you hear your partner or friend say, I have no idea what you're even talking about. I don't even remember what you are referring to. And I'm actually focused on the stuff that I'm thinking about. Like, it's just like, it reveals, it can reveal so much.
Right. Yeah. And can I give you an example?
Yeah,
It just happened to my husband and I, because we were talking about, we're getting ready to put an addition on the house. And like I said, I just left this corporate job that had a nice steady income. And so we're sitting there, I'm like, okay, these are my billables for this month. This is what I'm probably going to be bringing in. This is that. And then he goes, he's like, okay. He's like, so we're going to try to figure this out, or he was doing the math, so because we were getting ready to take a home equity loan out to do this addition on the house. And I can't remember what he said. He's like, all right, I got to figure out XYZ. And I stopped and I was like, you're not in this alone. We have to figure this out. I'm here too, and I'm going to help you, and I'm telling you all my billables for this month for my freelance work. And he laughed, and I took that laugh as he was laughing at me that I could actually contribute anything financially right now, because I just left my nice corporate job and I'm scrapping together my little freelance gigs here. And then I looked and I was like, you're laughing. I was like, don't laugh at me. I was like, I'm being honest. This is what I mean. I was like, why are you laughing at me? And I'm like, the story I'm telling myself is, you're laughing at me because how could I possibly contribute financially right now when you've left XYZ? And he's like, I'm laughing because it's so absurd, because when have I ever thought that you don't contribute to this family or this household? And so just in that moment,
wow,
we were like, that laugh meant completely different things to both of us. I thought he was mocking me, and he thought I was being absurd.
yeah,
And I guess I was, because again, back to the self-worth issues, because now I don't have a paycheck to contribute, so obviously I contribute nothing, right?
right.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent example. And I think worth comes into just about most internal dialogues and conversations that we have. I mean, for many of us, it's a lack of worth. For some people, it's an inflated self-worth. But it's like, its worth is in there. Holding space for good.
Yes.
what are you? Well, you asked me a question when we had our last conversation when we
Okay.
were on the opposite sides of the screen and microphone, and you're like, Dan, like, is there a place for this? Like, is there a place for this? Like, is holding space for good like
Mhm.
a real thing?
Mhm.
And I said, yes, like,
Mhm.
yes, there is. And I wasn't talking from my brain. I was talking from my heart and from my where I'm being pulled. And so I'm flipping that back on you with
Mhm.
now your experience these months
Mhm.
later. What has been your experience of holding space for good?
I'm learning incredible stories that I am so honored to be able to share, and I don't know if that, and I don't know the metrics of people who are reading them, which is kind of a blessing because I send it to my syndicate and they distribute to newspapers. So I know, and then I get royalties a quarter later. So I won't know until way down the road which is receptive to whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and which is kind of really good because I would sit there and hit refresh all day to see who is reading, and I have to work on that. But the feedback that I'm getting is really great. My hate mail's gone down a lot.
Mm,
The only time that I get hate mail is, in some of the regular fear-based corners, when I talk about immigration or LGBTQ community or anti-DEI legislation, I tend to get pushed back a little bit, but I do that through the lens of a narrative to exemplify the good work that's being done in those spaces, so it's really rare. And I just got an email yesterday morning, April 1st. I was like, this better not be April Fool's, but somebody in Tennessee sent me an email and said, I just found your column and it's a breath of fresh air and thank you so much. And I look forward to reading more. So I'm like,
mm,
that tells me that I'm on the right track. And I think people, they need it more than they need rage clicks. We need to remind ourselves of these positive stories. So yes, I'm going to give you my yes.
yes.
And I'm going to continue down that track and continue to chase after telling those stories that really lift our community.
Yes. And how do it's as I navigate media, social media and all of that stuff, it's this dance of having to navigate and be in the system that we are in
Yeah.
while also trying to change the way we're in it and try to change the landscape and change the trends, right? Like try to, we know
Yeah.
volatile stuff
Yeah.
and um, volatile stuff and sensational stuff gets clicks.
Yeah. Hmm.
That doesn't make the world better. Like
No.
that doesn't help. It's often very scary, horrific, traumatizing,
Yeah.
polarizing stuff. And it's
Yeah.
so I do feel like enough of us focus on this. And there are a lot of us out there, a
Yes.
lot of us
Yes.
who are totally committed to the good.
Yeah. I think both can coexist because I think we can illuminate the hard stuff through the good stories, which is kind of what I'm trying to do with my column. So I guess I'll take, for example, last week I wrote about Mercury Stardust, who is a influencer on TikTok and all the reels, who is she's transgender handyman. She calls herself the transgender the trans handyman, and she has a new book out about home repair, and she talks about home repair. But in the process of doing that, and in her videos that show home repair items, she has also raised $4.5 million for gender affirming care. And
Mm,
so, like, and she obviously gets a lot of hate because she's a transgender woman in the home repair space. And I love that she gives practical tips on everything from drywall to how to screw in a recessed light bulb. And also is taking that platform and doing so much good with it. And so I think you can be subversive as a big, bright ass light.
Mm.
And that's what I want to see more of is that kind of that shining that light into darkness. I'm here, I'm doing my thing, and I'm not wagging my finger at you. I'm just simply lifting up the community that means so much to me. And stop
Hmm.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
How'd that feel?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The light. The light. There is I take solace in the sayings which talk about, there is no light without dark and dark without light, like trying to just really embrace that this is part of our universe, this is part of our humanity, this is part of all of us, right? our
Mhm.
our ego, our shadow, like we all have the light and the dark, and
Yeah.
it's always been there.
Yeah.
It's always been there, and you look through history and I think there's some spikes, but
Mhm.
not I think there are some spikes, but it's always there.
Mhm.
And this seems to be our human challenge at this point, for everyone to do what they can just in their own lives, right? For
Mhm.
many, it's just getting through the day.
Yep.
Which, if that's what you're doing, that is enough. Back to our that is
Yep.
enough. And then if you have more energy or more resources, what can you do to shine light, to create good? And for a lot of people, it's, I don't have time, I don't have resources, I don't have energy. That's valid.
Mhm.
It's the literally like looking at people in the eye and saying hello,
Mhm.
holding a door,
Mhm.
thanking people, right? It's like the
Yep.
opposite of flicking someone off. If flipping someone off, if you're not happy what they did in the car, like wave, and
Yeah.
not the wave, which is the opposite of the fu. Like
Right.
just like this kindness thing,
Yeah.
this good thing, it ripples.
Yep.
They've
You
done
have to.
studies. They've done so many studies
Oh
about this.
gosh,
Yeah.
it benefits everybody and all the way to, and I really think that if we always think up here in this high um, legislative or societal changes that absolutely do need to shift. But if we can drill those down to our individual pathways, how many times have we met someone or someone in our lives, whether it was a parent or a teacher or a friend, who has deeply hurt us? And then down the road, you have that empathy for where they were on that path because you understand that it wasn't malicious necessarily. And I'm not saying that everyone is there. There are people out there who are horrible, that do horrible things on purpose. I am saying that we need to have compassion for each person on their path. And if you don't agree with someone on a certain point, it's only because your paths are so different. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily bad people. But if we can have conversations and we can greet each other with that kindness and the simple little things of every single day, we are so good at assigning ill intent. Can't we just
Mm-hmm.
assign generosity instead? Can't we
Mm-hmm.
have more generosity of spirit to when we see the person speeding down the highway? Instead of saying, that asshole, we can say, man, I hope they're okay. And they're not
Mm-hmm.
like, I hope everything's okay with them, that they're not racing to get home because of an emergency or racing to get to a hospital or something like that. If we can have ill intent, we can have generosity of spirit. We just have to be intentional about it so it becomes
Mm-hmm.
habit. And man,
Yeah.
if just a good percentage of us do that, I think that we'll be in a lot better place.
We will. And science, if we going to science, um, science has been able to calibrate and assess energy, and
Mhm,
the energy around the world or in situations
mhm,
of different emotions, right? From
mhm.
hate and violence all the way up to love and gratitude and everything in between, right?
That's right.
And we know scientifically the energy shifts when people shift. And the more people who are shifting, the higher we all calibrate. And
That's
you
right.
can't you can't touch this stuff, and
Mhm.
you can't find words for it,
Mhm.
but you can feel it in
And it's
certain
measurable.
spaces. It's measurable.
And it's measurable. So, like, for all the naysayers out there thinking
Yeah.
we're getting wooey, I'm like, "It's
Yeah.
measurable."
Yes.
You can
Yes.
you can measure it, and yeah, and but and I think that for all the people out there who say that they don't have the time or the space or the whatever, a good chunk of them are parents. So practice it in your own home, because all you're going to do is spiral that out through your children and their classmates and their schools,
Hmm.
and everything else will fall into
Hmm.
place. Yeah.
And I think this speaks to so many people who feel helpless and hopeless about what they're seeing going on in
Mhm.
our country or in their just communities,
Mhm.
and feeling like they are powerless and there's nothing they can do. And I think what we're talking about right now is and this is also relates back to being of value and of worth by just being who you are as
Mhm.
opposed to doing something.
Yeah.
This is both. This is like you can be of value just by being who you are. And the thing that you can do is have micro acts of kindness
That's right.
for whomever you come into contact with. That's a doing.
Yeah. And what you focus on expands. So start looking for
Hmm.
the good, and it'll expand.
Mm.
Yeah.
So your piece,
Uh-oh, which one?
yeah, well, the big piece where you left, I wanna highlight the piece. I love the title. This is your October 18th, 2024. Your
Ah.
your um, your goodbye and hello piece at the same time.
Mhm.
Hatred doesn't need my help,
That's right.
and that's a profound statement. Yes, and I want to actually read just a little bit of what you wrote
Okay.
because it's powerful, and
Thank you.
people need to hear it. So, towards the end of your article, announcement, decision,
Mhm.
new direction, you say, people are disappointed and some are even angry, but I have to do right by myself and forge my own path according to my purpose and values. If I'm going to put my creative energy into something all day, every day, I want it to be for the purpose of starting honest, difficult conversations with heart and the intent to solve social problems and unite people.
Mhm.
I will use that privilege for good to write and publish content that unites us instead of inflammatory columns that leave us filled with bitterness and hate. The opinion pages will have enough contempt without me. I want to be part of a gentler, kinder world, hopefully for the betterment of our country, certainly for the betterment of my soul.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can't get old hearing. That can't get old hearing.
Well, but I write that for myself just as much as anybody else, because you gotta put it
Yeah.
down, you gotta revisit it, and
Yeah.
remember, this is why I'm doing this. Yeah.
Oh, and it's inspiration for all of us because when you put your words out there and you make a very big decision of leaving a prestigious, um, paying job with some comfort and some safety,
Yeah.
and to say, I'm not doing this. I'm going out on my own, and
Mhm.
I'm going to do it this way because I'm going to follow my values
Mhm.
and look at myself in the mirror and be proud of what I see. And this is what I want to put in the world for myself, for my kids, and for everyone.
Mhm.
That takes a lot of courage.
Thank you. Thank you. Takes a lot of support too, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful to have it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. But thank you. Yeah.
So, Bonnie, I'm going to use your phrase
Okay.
and say that you are a big, bright ass light.
All right, I did that on a t-shirt.
Yes. Hey, I can see you in that. You get some Bonnie merch.
That's right.
Big, bright ass
Big
light.
bright ass light. There we go.
And
Write it down.
what we know about light is light lights more light, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to
Yeah.
keep light in the light.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I am excited for you, and I was happy to hear that we were going to have another conversation. These do really fill me up, and I have told you this before. I'm going to say it again in case you forgot. Uh, your level of authenticity, you put out who you are. Your writing is who you are. You speak to us when you write, and it is clear to me it comes from your heart, and it's genuine, and it is for the greater good.
Thank you so much. I feel like you're doing the same thing. I feel like we're very kindred spirits that way, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So tell everyone where to find your wisdom.
Okay. Writerbonnie.com is the easiest place. That's my website, and that'll point you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. You will find a link to my syndicated column there as well, and as well as any social media. If you wanna follow along, you'll see a lot of pictures of my dog and my cats and my kids. So
All good stuff.
yes.
Right. Holding space for good.
Yep. That's the plan.
Bonnie is such a breath of fresh air, and I know all of you felt her authenticity as much as I did in this conversation. Here are 5 key takeaways. 1, living in alignment with your values is not just fulfilling, it's necessary for your well-being. Bonnie's story of stress-induced health issues reminds us that our bodies will keep the score when we're out of sync with ourselves. Number 2, we all have a story, and when we lead with curiosity instead of contempt, we create space for genuine connection with others. 3, let go of productivity as a measure of your worth. You are enough, even when you're not checking the boxes, achieving, and winning awards. 4, kindness ripples. From a simple smile to community engagement, micro acts of goodness can shift collective energy and make a real impact. And number 5, there is space and a deep need for holding space for good. And it starts with showing up authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. Lean in, lift people up, and be like Bonnie, a bright ass light. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please share this episode with everyone you know who will benefit. Thank you for your 5-star reviews, for subscribing, and being an amazing part of our wonderful community. As always, I will leave you with this reminder: we have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.